Good evening. Welcome to the Peoria Public Schools District 150 Board of Education meeting for September 22nd, 2014. I'd like to call it to order. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Baker?
Here.
Mrs. Ross?
Here.
Mr. Coyle?
Here.
Mrs. Butler?
Here.
Mrs. Costa?
She's not here.
Mr. Crawford?
Here.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks. Okay, we're going to start off our meeting tonight with awards and recognition, and we are back on schedule with our recognition of Peoria's finest teacher each month. Welcome. Oh, now you are.
Good evening. Peoria's Finest Teacher is a monthly recognition that we are sponsoring for those members of PFT that go above and beyond, exemplify best practices in teaching, and/or reach out to the community and parents to be involved in our schools. The teachers in this district work so hard to serve the children and families of Peoria each day, and we want to showcase this positive effort. We want to thank our winner's principal, Ms. Malahi, and any faculty, friends, and family that are here in support of our winner. Our nominators of this month's winner are Cindy Schwindenhammer and Julie Vinke. Come up, ladies. And this month's Peoria's Finest Teacher is Jill Eshelman from Lindbergh Middle School. Congratulations, Jill.
I'd just like to share a little with you of why we nominated Mrs. Eshelman for this award. Jill Eshelman has extremely high expectations of all students. She sets the bar high, and students achieve and prosper under her guidance. As a 7th grade team, we see tremendous growth in students' NWE scores each year. Students in her classes also perform well on ISAT test. As a Lindbergh alum, Jill not only strives to have success in her classroom, but is dedicated to making Lindbergh the best school for all of our students. Jill has many strengths: lesson planning, collaboration, communication, classroom management, and a positive rapport with students, staff, and parents, to name a few. Jill's lessons are well planned and catered to the needs of students. She's continually adjusting lessons to reteach and reinforce weaknesses. She uses a smart board to guide her classroom instruction, and students record responses and keep notes. At the end of the day, she has saved these notes from each class, and these are posted on her website. This is great for students who are absent, as well as students who get home and just need a review of what happened in class that day. The general outline of these notes is basically the same for each class, but the completed notes are unique to each class period. Students are in math for a double block, which is 80 minutes, and students are engaged and on task from bell to bell.
Jill does an excellent job of collaborating with the special education teachers. She provides lesson plans, copies of assignments, and copies of tests well in advance. The special education teachers offer modifications, and then they work together to determine the best practices for the students with the special needs to have success. Most days, there are students in Jill's room during her prep. She offers students the opportunity for extra help or perhaps a chance to catch up during that time. Quite often, it is the parents who are requesting that their child come in during this time. Communication is also a strength for Jill. She spends a great deal of time calling, emailing, and conferencing with parents. She also communicates and works well with the teachers on the 7th grade team. This also includes the special education teacher, as well as other math teachers on staff. Her website is a great source for parents to stay in tune with what is happening in her classroom. Jill gives 100% every day, and we'd like for her to be recognized for her tireless work and dedication to the students at Lindbergh Middle School. Congratulations.
I would like to say what an honor it is to have these two ladies select me, because I work with such a wonderful staff, and it's just amazing how supportive everyone is at Lindbergh. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for nominating me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Ross?
Oh, I want to say congratulations to Jill, but I have a question for, what's the coordinator? Lana. I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Could you tell me what the process is for teachers being nominated and recognized? Because, you know, I've been watching this. You've been doing a great job of recognizing teachers over the past couple of years, and I've never seen an African-American teacher recognized in this particular event. I was just wondering, how would one, because we have some great
Teachers are actually nominated by teachers.
by teachers only.
They are coming from their peer group, and we have a form that kind of goes over as far as what qualifications or what things to look for. So they might be nominating someone within their building, they might be nominating someone from a different building, but it's all by their peers.
Okay, so every teacher knows that.
And we've even gone so far as if we're not throwing out a nomination from a prior year, if someone is really, deserving of it, we'll hold on to those nominations because we don't want to throw something away simply because we get more than we can pick from.
So you do receive several nominations?
We do, depending upon the time of the year, but yes. And truthfully, we try to broadcast it out to our teachers so that, again, we're reminding them throughout the year, don't forget this, and think of those in your building or people you know in the district. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to just say congratulations to Ms. Eshelman, and that thank you to the PFT for bringing this program forward, because I'm sure she is just one of the very many fine teachers that we get to recognize every year and that we have in our district. So thank you very much. Are there any announcements by board members tonight? Dr. Lathan, did you have a couple?
Yes. District 150 advanced placement teachers and their principals participated in our annual fall AP Saturday, this past Saturday at Manual. Teachers had an opportunity to collaborate with their peers from the other two high schools in the district. They analyzed their test data from last spring, and they developed a plan for increasing the number of students that are prepared for the AP courses and also for the tests as administered annually. The teachers also generated an idea for us as a team to come back. They'd like to use one of our SIP days to do some vertical articulation with the middle school teachers. So the advanced placement teachers would be leading the sessions, and our middle school teachers from the feeders would be attending sessions there, just so the middle school teachers know what they need to do to prepare the students for AP courses at the high school level. We'll present additional data to the board next month at the annual student achievement update. Thank you to board members and parents that attended our first parent university that was held on September 18th at Keller. We had over 90 participants and presenters. The next Parent University will be held on October 16th at Rolling Acres. And at this time, I'd like to thank Mr. Barber and his staff for decorating the boardroom tonight. So you'll notice if you look at the back here, we have artwork on display by our students. Also in the middle is their NWEA data from last school year. And their data board is actually displayed outside of their front office. When you enter into the building at Rolling Acres, they see that information. And they actually hold conversations with students about their progress. And they look at their data from fall 2013, then they looked at winter and then the spring data. Because the goal is about growing students. So once again, we utilize NWEA versus ISAT scores because it gives us a true picture of how students are doing throughout the school year. Also, board members, at each of your stations tonight, there are vegetables from the vegetable garden actually at Rolling Acres, and a recipe for you to make parsley ravioli with brown butter sauce. And once again, these vegetables actually were grown by the students at Rolling Acres. So thank you to Mr. Barber. And also, there's additional data at your stations as it relates to Rolling Acres. So once again, meet us on October 16th at Rolling Acres for Parent University, and also the boards behind us are decorated. So it's great to be a cougar, as they say. And finally, I want to just say a special thank you to the Kroger grocery stores in our community. They hosted the Central Illinois Food for All Drive this past Saturday. And just a thank you to all the staff members and students that volunteered. It was a great community event. very thankful that needy families in our community will have food and have access to that. And the food will be distributed through the Midwest Food Bank. So once again, thank you to the Central Illinois Food for All Drive, Ms. Jenkins, for coordinating that on behalf of District 150. But it was a beautiful day for our students and our staff.
Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Bateman?
Just want to add to that, I was out at a lot of the Kroger stores this weekend too, and what a pleasure it was to be out there with meeting the faculty members that were out and present, as well as the students. They really found themselves, really engaged with the community in that. It was really a pleasure to see the students take such great pride in working out there. So thank you to Dr. Lathan and Ms. Jenkins for their efforts in that, because it really went a long ways, and I think the community really appreciated it.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to approval of minutes for September 8th, 2014. Could I have a motion and a second?
So move.
Second.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Would you call the roll?
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Ms. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Ms. Wolfline?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carries.
Brings us to presentation by audience. Before we get started, we do have a budget hearing at 7, so we will take as many people as we can. At 7, we'll break and do the budget hearing. Oh, okay. And then we will continue with whatever we have after we are done with the budget hearing. So we're now at the audience opportunity to address the board. As a reminder, this is a business meeting of the Board of Education held in public, not a public meeting. It is not a question and answer session, and it is not a debate, so there will be no response from the horseshoe unless one of us has comments once the audience comments are completed. Recognizing everyone's First Amendment rights, we still ask that you refrain from speaking about subjects, topics relating directly to district personnel, and also those not germane to the Board of Education's authority. We also ask that you refrain from using inappropriate language and keep a civil tone to your remarks. Please also keep in mind that just because something can be said does not necessarily mean that it should be said. When you are recognized, please come to the podium and give your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. No one under 18 years of age may address the board unless accompanied by a parent, guardian, or a teacher without the consent of the majority of the board. Board members are also available by phone and/or email. This contact information is available on the district website and in the school calendars that parents receive from their school. Savino Sierra.
Sabino Sierra, 1708 South Stanley. I sing the same song all the time. I told you people about all those repairs that should be done before they deteriorate some more. But like you say, you listen to us, but you don't do nothing about it. And I pointed stuff out to you that really needs taken care of, but you're too busy going on trips and what have you, you know what I mean? Spending our money, which it doesn't do much good to help our children when it comes to the testing, you know what I mean? You might be teaching them something that they're not even going to use in a certain line of a job that they go seek. And I wish you people would get on the ball and pay more attention to our physical plants, you know. We're always bragging, you know, blowing our own bugle, but too many people, you know, they don't agree with you. And like I said before, I hear from people wherever I'm at, you know, even at church, you know. And so, but if you don't want to listen, maybe when we get rid of you people, well, then they'll get done. Thank you.
Aaron Chess.
Good evening, board members. My name is Aaron Chess, and I am a senior at Richwoods High School. And I come here tonight to speak on behalf of all students who attend all District 150 schools. This past summer, I attended Boys State, which is a political week-long camp, and I met a couple of young men who served on their school boards in areas ranging from Champaign to Chicago. After I returned home from the camp, I did research to see if we have a student delegate seat, and I seen that we didn't have a student delegate seat. And that is why I am here tonight, to encourage you to think about letting a student, most likely a high school student, serve as a delegate to the school board and represent the students in our district. Because if you think about it, none of you would be sitting in these seats if it weren't for the students. So let us students of District 152 have representation on the school board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pastor Jim Offit.
My name is Pastor Jim Offit. Someone has made the observation that peace is deeper than the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, respect, of shared values and ideals of commitment and active community cooperation toward those noble and uplifting community goals and objectives in the educational field that spotlight and limelight the priority of our children and youth having a quality educational experience. If that is so, then that is a good thing. And we're here this evening to take the opportunity, Superintendent Dr. Lathan, and you, the District 150 Board, to speak a word of encouragement and support to you in the curriculum of your board responsibilities for not majoring in minors and minoring in majors, but keeping the main thing, and not letting our kids get caught in the crossfire of competing political constituencies and ideologies. I guess that can indeed remain the case if we can always remember that it really doesn't matter who is in second place as long as the kids are in first place.
Excuse me, that was your 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you could, if you'd like, you could submit, if you have written comments, you could submit them to the secretary and she will get them to the board if you weren't able to finish.
I'm done.
Thank you. Sharon Cruz.
I know that it would behoove me to behave tonight, Armosha.
Absolutely.
I'll try. Mr. Cloyd, at the town hall meeting, you said that educational success has to be measurable. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. How will you measure how much the $388,000 spent on AVID nurtures a student's individual determination to learn or to go to college? District 150 does very little to track what its students do after high school. You won't even track the success rate at Valeska, what students do 10, 20, 30 years after high school is the only way to judge District 150 success rate, and some of mine are there. First, you should get rid of AVID, Covenants Learning, and Rosetta Stone, to name a few. You can't get back the other over $1 million wasted on these three programs. But at least you won't waste any more money on companies that exist to make money, not because they care about students. Kids love to play games on computers, but they don't respond well to computer learning. The most effective learning takes place through student interactions with teachers and their peers. Teachers should be allowed to choose the technology that fits their subject and individual teaching style, not programs forced on them by administrators. Second, spend your money on a viable summer school. I firmly believe that until students are held accountable by sacrificing their summers and money to retake failed classes or to improve grade points, academic standards and successes will not improve in District 150. I can guarantee you that many of my students put forth extra effort just to avoid those sacrifices. Others benefited greatly from the chance for these do-overs. In days gone by, teachers did not become principals or district administrators until they had served at least 20 years in the classroom. Start paying teachers to stay in the classroom instead of offering them lucrative escapes from the classroom. I believe that you have too many central administrators who chose teaching just as a stepping stone into high-paying jobs where they tell teachers to do what they themselves never accomplished in classrooms. Hire and motivate teachers who love the subject they teach. Choose and support teachers who love the children they teach. And carefully choose the technology and text that enhance the teacher's efforts to teach. And teachers must be a part of choosing the technology and texts. And this administration has not done that. Stop spending the money on programs that promise to change student behaviors. They aren't working. Thank you.
Terry Knapp.
I think it's important to point out, we've had several Afro-American teachers who've been Teacher of the Month and Teacher of the Year in the Teachers Union. We used to share this honor with the Kiwanis Club, and we took our teachers to the Kiwanis, and they partnered with us and gave us a plaque to each teacher and so forth. It was really a symbolism that you missed out on, obviously. We had luncheons with those teachers. So one of the problems is Herschel Hanna, who used to be here and was in charge of minority recruitment, is no longer here. I don't think we put a new administrator in that position. I've not heard about it, and I've not heard about any overt activity to attract Afro-American teachers to this district, even though we have 65% minority students with only about 6 or 7% minority teachers. It's a shame. I'd like to point out Common Core. Common Core was in town Saturday. Not a person from the administration or the Board of Education was at that Gateway Building. Many of us in the audience were there. You need to get to a Common Core meeting. There's another one coming up on October the 18th, and you need to be there. It's a shame that you weren't there. You need to also understand that the meeting with Change, District 150, Change 150, was brought out that you don't have any examples of how teachers and people are treated by this administration. I would say Chanel Henley was brought up at this meeting, and she left her job because she was treated poorly by this administration. Valda Shipp, who was a principal in this district, was one of the first casualties of this administration. She was summarily let go. Other people, Lee Winger, who is one of our most important people in Peoria, as far as I'm concerned, banned from the school district for life. Ridiculous. That ban should be lifted. I preach to the choir again, I'm sure. Pam Shaw and Michelle Ungraith, brought here by the district, they stood up and told you how they were treated, and you just didn't listen. You didn't care. Because, and I repeat that the administration brought Michelle Ungraith here from North Carolina. Within 2 or 3 weeks, she fell on disfavor and was let go at the end of the year, totally disrupting her life, her family, and everybody else. You don't need more examples. You need to study the ones you have. On this sheet that I gave you, and I'm going to speak to it a little bit more when I talk in the budget portion of this meeting, you see that there are contract placements here. G talks about the teacher academy, which was never implemented by this administration, even though it was negotiated in the 2000 contract and every contract since. This is in the 13 through 16 contract, and talks about the fact that these people going on these trips should be compensated with hours of credit on the salary schedule. This is clear, and I will continue to talk about this later. Thank you.
Larry Ivory.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Ivory. I'm the President and CEO of the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce, and it's indeed a pleasure to address this distinguished board. I come from a perspective of I know how difficult it is to be in leadership, and I don't come to attack or say anything derogatory. I'm encouraged by the fact that you have an incredible responsibility in front of you to educate the kids that live in District 150. And even though we have not done all that we can do, I believe that you have done what you knew how to do. And we come in support of this board, but also in support of, we think, a great superintendent, Dr. Lathan, for the role that she's played and accomplishments that she's had. We just want to lend our support as an organization. You supported an event that we had recently at the Civic Center, the Central Illinois Black Expo, and we had a chance to bring a couple superstars here, and we were able to take those kids, Fiction and Naomi, who won the Next Top Model, and Fiction, who won So You Think You Can Dance. I want to lend our support as an organization to support this fine board and to be available for anything that we can do that would help further the education and putting the kids first. So again, I know how difficult the job is, and we respect you for doing what you're doing, and we ask that you work closer together so we can educate our kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we're going to stop at this point and do our budget hearing, so I need a motion and a second to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mrs. Wilcox?
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Wilcoxon, do you want to make a couple of comments, updates for the board before we hear from the public?
I think it'd be helpful to put our budget hearing in context of some of the discussions we've had at previous board meetings. At the August 11th meeting, the board was provided with a budget preview and discussed several budget issues. As discussed, local property taxes and general state aid each represent about 30% of our operating budget, and each source is decreasing. Local taxes are decreasing due to decreasing EAVs, and general state aid has been decreasing due to insufficient state appropriations and a regressive state funding formula. From fiscal year 2011 to 2014, our expenditures increased on average 3%, while operating revenues decreased on average by 0.1%. The district overall has done a good job holding the line on expenditures. The challenge has been stagnant and decreasing revenues. We also discussed budget priorities, the need for earlier budget planning, the advocacy efforts. We've been making progress in all of those areas. Related to advocacy, sometimes we're asked what parents and citizens can do to help the district. One way is to join the superintendent in publicly supporting Senate Bill 16, which reforms the way schools are funded in Illinois. If passed and fully implemented, District 150 and the Peoria economy would benefit financially by slightly more than $8 million per year. At the August 25th meeting, the board was presented with the initial 2015 budget. At that meeting, we discussed the assumptions in that budget. We also again discussed the budget process with a focus on identifying expense reductions in the current year, implementing earlier budget development for fiscal year 2016, and improving information for budget decisions. Again, since that meeting, staff members have been making good progress in those areas. Finally, I'd like to point out a few major changes to the initial budget, to the budget that you're asked to approve today. On the revenue side, the largest change is in the transportation fund. Since the initial budget, we've filed our transportation claim and have a more solid estimate of our likely reimbursement, which nets an increase of $850,000 in transportation fund revenue. There are also some minor changes in expected special ed and driver's ed reimbursements. Those are included in this budget. On the expenditure side, we added the costs for the health clinics at Harrison and Treewin and grant-funded expenditures at Woodruff. So those are the major changes to the budget from the initial budget presented to the board. In closing, I'd like to share two observations. First, when looking at administrative expenses at 150, I compared expenses and staffing at my previous employer, also an educational institution and with a similar sized budget. My observation is the administrative staff at 150 is significantly leaner than the school that I came from. Second, and I'll note again that the budget is a constant work in progress throughout the year. Adjustments are made to revenues and expenditures become clearer. So again, it's a work in progress, and that's what's before the board today. So with that, I'm available for any questions the board may have.
How about if we go ahead and let the public speak first, and then if the board has any questions or comments, we'll go with that. So we're going to ask you to come up and 3 minutes, identify yourself, and ask you to stick to 3 minutes, and please contain your comments to the budget. So whoever would like to be first.
Terry Knapp, 922 West Wilshire Drive, Peoria. You have a sheet in front of you, and I'd like to refer to that sheet, if you would. In the main body of the sheet, it talks about 4 expenditures for food. One for on 418 and 419 for $4,000 and $4,900, $8,900 in 2 days. My class reunion is going to Alexander Street Steakhouse. 80 people are going to eat for $2,000. I could serve 350 people at Alexander Street Steakhouse for $4,900, tip and tax included, beverage also. I think that's outlandish. It's outrageous that we spend this kind of money on food. 2 other expenditures there, $2,930 and $3,200. Again, outrageous. And people are taking this food home, which I think is illegal. I don't think you can take food home. I think you got to send it to the mission or throw it away. I don't think husbands and administrators can cart the food off after the meeting's over. I don't think that that's proper. Cut busing. We're talking about busing. We're busing too many people, too many discipline problems on buses. Another one occurred this week, but the cost of the busing is prohibitive, and you know that, and we need to cut busing, not increase busing. You need to cut administration. I don't care. The gentleman said it's leaner than it is someplace else. Well, our budget deficit is $12 million, I think you said, or $11 million, whatever it is. I don't care that it's leaner or more someplace else where they have more money. If you got more money, you can spend more money. You got to cut this budget. You can't sit there and make statements at public forums and say, well, we got to keep the same programs we have. When you're $11 million in the hole, you can't keep your budget the same as it was before. It doesn't work that way. My budget doesn't work that way, and yours shouldn't work that way. You need to also cut Quest. You know, they can't even get the number of kids in high schools, and one of their board members said, you know, we're going to talk about this at another time, I understand, but they need more money. They can't get the kids to go there. The ones on the waiting list, they don't want because they're troubled kids. That was in the paper. Did you read it? When it comes time for Quest to come here and ask for more money, you're going to line up and vote yes, give them 5 more years. That's just the way it is. And that's a shame that you can't deal with that. One other thing is travel out of state. Cut all travel out of state. I never traveled out of state in 38 years. In 38 years as a teacher, never traveled out of state. I traveled a lot in the state, but that's prudent. And for you, Mr. Comptroller, to sit there and suggest that we should be traveling out of state and not say anything about it is horrific, I think. Thank you.
You have escaped the state's demand for a deficit reduction plan, but not the need for wiser spending. Your spending reveals the district's priorities and philosophy for education. We hear only a yes vote on expenditures over $2,500, but never hear what they are and why you approve them. Who among you decided to break tradition to allow the superintendent to make educational spending decisions with little or no input from teachers? In August, you approved over $96,000 more to pay for Avid and for Avid-related expenses. Why? On August 11, I presented district data, not my opinions, showing that Rosetta Stone had been used minimally at only 2 schools. In August, you approved almost $47,000 more for Rosetta Stone, and Dr. Lathan delivered what seemed to be an attempt to contradict information I had received in a FOIA response. Please explain why the original $325,000 couldn't cover the needs at Trewin, Mark Bills, Lincoln, and Sterling for Rosetta Stone. In August, you approved $438,000 more in spending for 25 textbook orders, no titles given. How much of this money went to pay for books lost by students? Your own policy reads, students receiving a fee waiver are not exempt from charges for lost and damaged books. What are you doing to see that this policy is followed? You approved $220,000 more for Paxton Patterson and $57,000 for a variety of instructional materials. I am a bit curious about the $40,000 spent on camera servers for Ricketts and the $15,000 spent on high-energy exterior parking. You must make a decision about the state's attorney's directive regarding an investigation of P-card expenditures. I have given you another example of a P-card policy violation. On December 5th, 2013, $1,052 was spent at Hobby Lobby for 18 charges on home accent purchases. None of the required information is written on the receipt. There is no way of knowing whether these were Christmas decorations for Wisconsin Avenue or someone's house. Teachers pay for their own classroom decorations except for the paltry $100 each is given to last for a whole year. Who should pay for decorating Wisconsin Avenue offices, especially those out of public view, those behind locked doors? Mrs. Wolfmeyer, this is a meeting held in public, but it is public for the benefit of the public. You convene here twice monthly to tell us how your decisions affect District 150 and to let us judge whether or not we voted for the right people. We leave here with very little information. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Armosha Sturdivant. I'm from the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce.
Is this specific to the budget?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. We talked about, I listened to the budget cuts that were discussed just a moment ago, but I'd like to bring some clarity or maybe just give an informational about some FOIA purchases. Now, we talked about the food purchase and the budget, and I think that there's no boundary when it comes to education prices. But $27,000 was spent on senseless FOIAs in the last 4 years. I think that that's inappropriate. I think that we could have put that money on more textbooks. I think that 30-year-old textbooks needed to be replaced, and I actually think that we should spend more money than the amount that was quoted earlier. But I think the $27,000 that was used to pay for FOIAs that the district had to pay, I think we could have used that for some more textbooks. That's my comment.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the budget?
Thank you, and hello this evening. I'm Pastor Harvey Burnett, and I just wanted to speak to a couple of things. It seems that we all know that there's a budget deficit. We knew that when the state did not pay what was due this district, but the story is being made that this district has spent itself into a deficit, and that's not the case. That I know as being an insurance and financial sales agent that When you plan for certain things to come in and they don't come in, then you have to make arrangements and do whatever you have to do. I'm proud to say and proud to be a part of a district that has placed children, number one, has pulled out every stop to educate children and to give them modernization in education and to give them the tools that they need in order to be successful. The only thing that I encourage those of you around this table to continue to do is to make sure that not only make sure that there's money there to provide the full support that every teacher and every principal needs inside of every building. I say that because I spend my days in a District 150 building quite busy making sure that our teachers and our administrators have the support that's necessary to make the educational process during the day possible. And sometimes when we look at budgetary concerns, those things are considered less. But let me just give you an example. A couple of days ago, it was a very busy day at Lincoln School. We have 5 administrators and all 5 were busy. And there were 2 classrooms that needed assistance with students. I was one of the ones that was running to make sure that these things were taken care of. If we cut that support staff out, our educational process will take a reversion, a step backwards. Our teachers will not have the support that they need, neither will our administrators. So I encourage those of you who have input into this budget to continue to input that support staff, those educational pieces that help those teachers grab a hold of the new and exciting educational processes that will attract the attention of our children and give them a successful education at all levels. And thank you for the job that you've done up until this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the budget?
Good evening. My name is Professor William. I studied school finance with G. Allen Hickrod and Dr. Ben Hubbard. I attended a lot of their seminars and workshops, and I think your comptroller, someone here, also studied with Dr. G. Allen Hickrod, and Dr. Ben Hubbard, who were the 2 individuals responsible for the resource equalizer that is used to fund schools in the state of Illinois and elsewhere in the Midwest. I'm here to congratulate the board and our great superintendent on the superb job that you have been doing all of these years. A lot of people do not know that the financing, the majority of the financing for the public schools, especially for Peoria as well, throughout the state of Illinois and other states except Hawaii, is based upon property taxes. And we have to take in consideration that monies from the federal government is not all that goes into the budget to finance schools. We'll also must take in consideration, in my opinion, because I'm a school psychologist, no longer a school psychologist, but I have worked as a school psychologist. I taught in 3 universities and a college, and I do know something about school law and school financing, and I know something about superintendents, teachers, and board members. And I would say from my research that it would be very hard to say that the school board in District 150 and the superintendent, it'd be very hard to say they're not doing a good job. My research shows they are doing a superb job when you compare them not only with urban schools throughout the United States, but urban school centers in the state of Illinois. So I say to you board members and to the great superintendent who got a PhD, I'm told, from my research from the Southern Illinois University. Now, that might not be correct, but I read abstracts. We have one of the greatest school superintendents in the nation. Now, those of you who take pride in criticizing our Board of Education and our school superintendent, go back and read the research. go back and study the research and take a look at urban school districts, Chicago, Rockford, etc., and you will see that School District 150, our great Board of Education, and our superintendent stand above all of those people. And if you want to criticize somebody, come criticize me and look at the research that I have to support the school board and our school superintendent. I spend 37 and a half hours a week doing research, and I've been doing it since 6th grade. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm up here speaking to the budget. One request I do have, Mr. Wilcoxon brought up having administration on the budget committee. I'd like to ask also that we have union leaders and maybe even some community members on that budget committee, not only for input, but so there's buy-in as well. Speaking of school spending reform, I am proud of Dr. Lathan for taking a stand for an alternative way to finance our schools, and maybe you'll speak to that a little later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the budget tonight? Seeing no one, I need a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolford?
Aye. Now, are there any questions or comments by board members for Mr. Wilcoxon? We will, you can ask later on when we have the action item come up, or you can ask now, whichever is your pleasure.
Action item.
Okay, we will.
Yeah.
If anybody
let's just
has
do it
questions,
then.
we'll do it during the action item. Okay, that will bring us back to finish up our audience comments. I don't know, I think some of these people have spoken. If you want to speak again, you'll be most welcome to do that. Pastor Harvey Burnett?
Once again, thank you for this opportunity to address the board. I'm excited about tonight's nominee for Teacher of the Month, Ms. Ashelman. I don't know her, but out of all the things, I have a high respect and regard for teachers, especially after having worked with them up close and personal. But out of all the things that were said about her tonight, I did not hear one person say that she ever said, "These mean school leaders and that mean superintendent, I just can't get my work done." I didn't hear anybody recant that she has any frustrations, but that she goes on doing her job, and surely I know that she runs into her share of frustrations. But the report is just this, that those that do the job and place children first, put their comforts second along the line. We've had opposition for quite some time now regarding this superintendent and her quote-unquote mean and intimidating demeanor. I've been in the lady's office, I talked with her, and I've never felt fear of my life. I've never felt fear of being hit, struck, or called a child or anything like that. I've always been respected, whether we have agreed and or disagreed. But one thing I can say is that when we place children first in this district, there are some that, even though they say that they are doing that, they really are using code to say that they want to be first and that their comforts take priority. I would that this community would understand that children and their education are more than just numbers on a page. And even though we've talked about budget tonight already, the children are far more than a budget. Let's take you to a conversation that I had just the other day with a 12-year-old young man who said that all he wanted to do was make money when he gets out of school. I took about a half hour of his time with the teacher's approval and spent time talking with that young man. Come to find out, his brother was making money when he went to prison His brother was making money when he got out of jail and got killed. I asked that young man, now, is this the way that you want to make money? And he had to sit back after he listened to himself and said, no, that's not it. And so I began to share with him the importance of his education and why he needed to be in the classroom to secure that education, because that experience, that one person, directly relates to you and I. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Armosha Sturtevant.
Good evening again. Dr. Lathan, on behalf of the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce and District 150, we support you. We support everything that you're doing. I'd like to say, being in business, we're looking for those skills that Woodruff has to offer. So we applaud you for thinking of college-bound and giving our grade school and high school children the opportunity and the vision to come to college and then get those engineering jobs. And I come from a male-dominated background in logistics, and I know that those skills that Woodruff has to offer is something that those children are going to need. So we applaud you for that. We also applaud you for replacing, once again, 30-year-old textbooks and whatever dollar amount that is needed to educate our children so that they are projected and ready for college to handle those difficult classes like statistics and like all of the other things that I've had to take even at a doctoral level. So we would like to applaud you for those things and the board. I also think that Parent University was one of the biggest things and biggest hurdles that you could have ever went over in placing this inside of District 150. When I was coming up, Harry Whitaker was our superintendent. I never saw him nor the board, but it was my parents who made me do my homework and made me get involved, and they were involved in my school too. So I'd like to applaud you for putting that in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Chuck Brown.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pastor Charles Brown. I represent Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church. We are your neighbors across the street from Peoria Central High School. Also, I'd like to thank Larry with the Black Chamber of Commerce for inviting me also to come. This is something we as parents should make it our personal business to be a part of. Once again, I'd like to piggyback on the difficulty of leadership, especially during difficult times. I know your job is hard and it's easy to throw rocks on the outside without understanding the difficulty of what you have to do on the inside. So I want to commend you for a job well done over the past few years. I've had my kids attend Charter Oak, Washington, Gifted, Rolling Acres, as well as Richwoods. To see the construction and all the things that are going on throughout the community, it is just a bright spot. Very exciting times to be able to do it during difficult times, challenging times in the economy. I really commend you. So I just wanted to introduce myself. We have a tools program at our church on Saturdays. It's not government funded or any grants, which is not what this is all about. It's just men mentoring young men, particularly in the community, in the area of doing things with their hands, exchanging a gun for a hammer. Amen. So if I would recommend something with the different programs you have through Woodruff. When you have these construction projects going on in District 150, that you would take the time, and I don't know if you're doing that, to take these young men and young women out on the site, let them get their hands involved in it, and let them see what the building process is all about. I would encourage you to do that because you'd be absolutely amazed. That's a real nice beat going right there, but excuse me. Gonna pop some tags. That's for my kids. I'm not out of touch. So, $20. So with that said, again, Dr. Latham, it's a very difficult job, and you have, and my prayers are with you and the entire board. Very intelligent people who have done a fine job. I want to commend you on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Williams.
ladies and gentlemen of the board and of the gallery. I am Lord Mike with the Black Chamber of Commerce and with Cumulus Media and Power 92.3. And I want to just come up tonight and just give my brief words of encouragement to the board and to the superintendent for the fine job that you all are doing. I'm a proud graduate of District 150, and my son is a junior of District 150 right now, and he's taking advantage of some of the fine programs that you have at WCTC. I'm jealous tremendously because these opportunities weren't available to me, and I'm encouraging them every day. I have more children in District 150, obviously, but I'm encouraging them every day to take advantage of the opportunities that are there, and I can't thank you enough for providing them and making sure that they are there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any board members that have questions or comments for the superintendent or the audience based on what you heard? I would like to ask you to speak to the comment on the WCTC kids, the construction kids going out. We do have something going on, I believe, with getting those kids out and doing some hands-on work.
Yes, we do. And Reverend Brown, if you would touch base with Ms. Johnson, she actually works with Woodruff. If you have some projects, she's willing to talk with you. But we are taking our students out to sites, and they're taking on some small, minor jobs. And our first project is actually with the agency that provides food to the homeless on Thursday. So we're doing some things with shelving and repairing, I think, a back porch. And so we are getting out, and so that's our goal. Also, just it's a couple of months away, but I want to bring that up since you brought it up. December 5th is our College and Career Day, and we will actually be highlighting the trades and industry and the service industry. And so our goal on December 5th is to take speakers out to our schools and introduce our students to jobs not only that are available in District 150, but also available in the city of Peoria. So we're going to be taking our plumbers and our carpenters out, our electricians out, so the students can see our actual employees, and we're partnering. And so we will get them out, and anyone that's in the service industry, we're going to take out painters. If you would like to participate, please let Mr. Copeland know. Mr. Copeland, if you'll wave your hand up. If you're willing to be a speaker as part of our bureau, please let us know. So it's December 5th, and so hopefully we'll have people out. But if you're interested in some things for Woodruff, touch base with Ms. Johnson, please. Okay, thank you.
Would you also speak to your participation in the coalition around Senate Bill 16?
Senate Bill 16, superintendents across the state are being asked, and various school districts are being asked to pass a resolution, and different agencies to encourage our elected officials to pass Senate Bill 16. It will look at it'll change the formula status for high poverty school districts. For example, it would mean possibly, as Mr. Wilcoxon said earlier today, about additional $8 million in District 150 on an annual basis. It's based on general state aid, so it's based on the number of students. And the initial projections that they used are from 2011-12 school year, if I'm not mistaken. So think about where we would be right now as we look at our enrollment. But it would make a difference. There are, I want to be very honest with you, some winners and losers in our own county. But at the end of the day, if you think about the $8 million that are coming in for District 150, let's say a neighboring district loses $3 million. Well, that's still $5 million coming into our economy. And so we have to look at it from that standpoint. But it will make a difference. Our responsibilities as a member of the coalition is to encourage others to get out, to educate our community. We will hold a session at the next Parent University, October 16th at Rolling Acres, where people can come out and receive additional information. But we are encouraging our elected officials. I will tell you, I'm sure our elected officials in our county are probably torn, because once again, there are winners. District 150 is a major winner, and then there are some losers in our current Peoria County.
Thank you. Mrs. Ross?
I want to just kind of dovetail or address the issue of the young man that spoke about developing a youth council or advisory type council to the board. I've suggested this for quite a number of years now, that we need a youth on this board, but maybe not necessarily on the board, but at least a delegate that represents the youth of that we serve. So I'd be open to actually, bringing that to the board as a possibility, because I think that's a needed addition.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Cloyd?
Yes, just in regard to activities at Woodruff, the 21st and 22nd of October, the Explore Manufacturing Expo will be held there. It's the first time it's being held at Woodruff, and it's for students who have the possibility of pursuing a career in manufacturing. There are many opportunities in the area, and it will cover several counties of different schools. It will be held at Woodruff this time. It was in the Peoria Civic Center before, and I think it would be a great opportunity for the schools that are looking to bring students in and first of all see our facilities, and second, get a chance to understand the opportunity for careers in manufacturing in the area. So it's nice to have something like that, and the fact that we're hosting it.
Thank you. Reverend Butler?
I just want to say thank you to the individuals that took time out tonight to come, as they said, to give words of encouragement and inspiration to the board, to acknowledge what it takes to be in this form of leadership. So I just want to publicly say thank you for doing this tonight. It's been extremely encouraging to me, and I'm just grateful for your participation.
I do have one question, and it was mentioned from the podium tonight. The POs over $2,500 that we look at, are those part of the agenda that's posted on the website? Do we know?
She said yes.
Yes? No, I mean for the public. Okay, maybe perhaps that's something we can look at and see if that's a possibility.
They're in the minutes, I believe.
Okay, so they'd be available after the meeting in the minutes. Perhaps we could make them available on the website before, so we'll look into that and see if that's a possibility. Okay, that brings us to information items. Speaking of POs over $2,500, do board members have any questions for Mr. Wilcoxon on the ones on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act and status of such requests.
Since our last board meeting report on September 8th, 2014, we received 9 new Freedom of Information Act requests. Of these new requests, 3 were filled. There were 7 pending requests noted on the September 8th, 2014 board report. 5 were filled. We received 110 requests for this calendar year.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. Reverend Butler, would you give us an idea of the gifts to the school district for this meeting?
Yes. Gifts to the school district for this meeting, gifts total $1,716.18. Year-to-date, the gifts total $10,033.18. Want to also make mention that the proposed action for these particular gifts, that the following donations be accepted and letters of appreciation sent to the donors. Then also, with this information of donors and gifts given, there are donations totaling $7,625 that were made to the Peoria Public Schools Foundation.
Thank you. The consent agenda tonight consists of the gifts to the school district, the payment of bills, the human resources report. The proposed action is the appointment, employment, compensation, performance, resignation, retirement, or discharge of an employee, payment for travel, payment for board travel. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the following expenditure for board member travel: John Bateman and Chris Crawford to attend the IASB, IASBO, IASA Joint Conference in Chicago, Illinois, November 21st through the 23rd, 2014, at a total cost of $2,472.60. Item 6 is Board Policy 6:150, Home and Hospital Instruction. The proposed action is that the Board of Education waive the first reading and approve the changes made to Board Policy 6:150, Home and Hospital Instruction, changing wording from a licensed medical examiner to physician licensed to practice medicine in all of its branches, as stated in state law, as the only person who can certify a child is eligible for homebound or in-hospital instruction. Item 7 is field trip approval for the Washington Orchestra students. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for orchestra students from Washington Gifted Middle School to attend a concert, Miles Davis and the Blue Flame Incident, covering the musical, historical, and cultural aspects of Miles Davis, an important American jazz musician. Students will travel to Two Hill Center, St. Louis, Missouri by charter bus on October 6, 2014, and return the same day. The cost of this trip is self-funded through PTO fundraiser contributions and student fees. No child will be denied attendance due to inability to pay. Item 8 is a field trip approval. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for the students grades 9 through 12 and parents that participate in the college-bound Peoria program to travel to the University of Illinois in Champaign and Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana, to participate in campus visits and attend the Circle City Classic on October 3rd and 4th, 2014, per Board Policy 6:240. There will be a total of 55 participants. The total cost of this Title I trip is $5,500. This includes transportation, lodging, meals, and entry fees. Students are responsible for 3 of the 6 meals. No student will be denied attendance due to inability to pay. Number 9 is field trip approval. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for Richwood's Marine Corps ROTC program to travel to Ingersoll Scout Reservation in London Mills, Illinois on October 31st through November 1st, 2014, to participate in rock climbing and navigation training per Board Policy 6:240. The JROTC program will be funding lodging and transportation costs of $750. Meal costs are the responsibility of the cadets. No student will be denied attendance due to inability to pay. Are there any items on the consent agenda a board member wants pulled for a separate vote? Could I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda tonight? I don't know if you want to go ahead and just briefly speak to the field trips, and then, I don't know, if Mr. Cloyd, if you want to speak to the policy when she's done, if you want to speak to the field trips?
That'd be fine, go ahead.
Okay. So the field trips, once again, Washington Gifted Orchestra students are traveling, and that's, so the PTO is sponsoring that. Our college-bound Peoria students have 2 college visits and also attending a football game next Saturday. Last year, we took our Lincoln students, Avid students, and also our college-bound Peoria students. And I'm not sure the 2 teams that are playing next Saturday, but do you all know the 2 teams that are playing? It's not your supported team, but they're actually attending the game at the Indianapolis Colt Superdome. And then, like I said, our students and our parents will be participating. And then the field trip for Richwood's ROTC. This is an annual trip, and I think they have probably 3 more trips this school year. Also, I want to just bring to the board's attention that we're using a new, once again, trying to go paperless. We're using Field Trip Tracker, which is a paperless program for field trips. So everything goes into the computer, and then we generate a payout, and including the staff member that is requesting a field trip having to assign a budget code to that. So field trips are not approved unless they have a budget code. So that's something else that we're implementing this year, and the Transportation Department's done an outstanding job with that. So those are the field trips. And I want to just say, it as it relates to field trip and even other budget expenses, people are confused just because you hear that there's a deficit in the ed fund. We use a combination of funds for not only travel, but for programs, even to support AVID or Compass Learning. We're using Title I funds and some ed funds. So it's a combination of funds, and oftentimes people forget that or they don't agree. And as it relates to AVID, since that was brought up tonight, Franklin Primary School is actually going to be highlighted as an AVID showcase school on November 13th. We have school districts from Texas to Minnesota coming out on that day, and our board members, I'll be sending you some information on save the date. So we're receiving some positive feedback as it relates to AVID, and AVID is encouraging, bless you, every district student to let them know that they are capable of going to college. And I know some people have some struggles with that, but it's our job to educate and let children and their parents know that they have choices. AVID is that vehicle right now that we're using to push and promote that for our students. Whether it's a 2-year college, a 4-year university, or going out into the world of work, AVID is getting them prepared. So I just want to share that information.
Dr. Lathan, as we talk about Number 8, College Bound. I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard, the success that we're having in the interest of that program. Perhaps you can expect to that mention about how much interest there is in the College Bound program.
So our goal each year in the past for Abbott has been to register 30 students for College Bound Peoria, wanting basically 10 freshman students from each of our high schools. Last count, we had 70 applications for, 75 for this year's College Bound Peoria class. And Ms. Jenkins, you're taking all 75?
We are not. So it's a homecoming week, so some people opt themselves out.
Okay, because the attendance is mandatory, similar to our PALS, Parents as Leaders program, so they will, if they attend homecoming, they will not participate in the first event. But we do have, because the interest is growing every year. Once again, it does require the parent or a guardian or some adult that has an interest in that child's education to participate along with the child.
Because you have to even relocate where you're going to hold the meeting.
Yeah, relocate where we're going to hold the
Attendance.
meetings. And
Great.
request from parents and students last year was to hold it outside of Parent University. The past 2 years, it's been a part of Parent University. Parents wanted to be able to attend both Parent University and College Bound Peoria. So we're actually holding College Bound Peoria on Saturdays now, once a month throughout the school year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cloyd?
Yes, board policy, it's item number 6. And the wording was a sort of an anachronism. It required that this be done by a licensed medical examiner, and as far as we could tell, that would be the coroner, which is completely inappropriate for that responsibility. So we've changed the language to reflect what the school code should say, and it does, so.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Bateman?
Just with regards to item number 5 with travel to the Illinois Association of School Boards, just being mindful of responsible with money, taxpayers' money in that. I did have an option to go to the orientation for new school boards shortly after being seated, opted not to do that and to be respectful of funds, and we'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone by going to this, so I get the orientation as well as participate in that. So if you think we're wasting your money, we're trying not to.
Any other comments? Would you call the roll?
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mrs. Costa? Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. That brings us to deliberation agenda number, that brings us to discipline number 10.
Could you second for me? Okay, number 10, revocation of board probation. The proposed action is that the revocation of board probation listed on the report dated September 22nd, 2014 is approved as amended.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Mrs. Ross?
Number 11, revocation of expulsions held in abeyance. The proposed action is that the revocation of expulsions held in abeyance listed on the report dated September 22nd, 2014 be approved as amended.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mrs. Costa? Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Mrs. Ross?
Number 12, expulsions. Proposed action is that the expulsions listed on the report dated September 22nd, 2014 be approved as amended.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Students expelled by the board are referred to by number, thereby ensuring privacy. Board actions concerning these students has been decided in executive session.
Thank you. Item 13 is the budget resolution. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the following resolution. Whereas the Board of Education of Peoria School District 150, County of Peoria, State of Illinois, caused to be prepared for a tentative budget, and the Secretary of the Board has made the same conveniently available to public inspection for at least 30 days prior to final action thereon. And whereas a public hearing was held as to such budget on the 22nd day of September 2014, notice of said hearing was given at least 30 days prior thereto required by law, and all other legal requirements have been complied with. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of said district as follows, that the budget containing an estimate of amounts available in each fund separately and the expenditures from each be and the same is hereby adopted as the budget of this school district for the 2014-2015 fiscal year. Could I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Now, are there any questions or comments for Mr. Wilcoxon at this point? Mrs. Ross?
I think I asked a while back what portion of our budget is related to grants. And I was wondering if you ever were able to determine that.
Our ed fund, let's see, I'm doing this off the top of my head. We're talking about two different sections of the education fund. There's an unrestricted portion that's an 111 million, and I'm going to cheat here. Okay. It's 128 million is my recollection. So I think it's 111 million is the unrestricted ed fund, and about 18 or 19 million is the restricted ed fund, and that's primarily grant funded.
Okay. So does that include Title I and all that?
Yes, that's in the restricted ed fund.
Any other questions or comments?
I wanted to commend Mr. Wilcoxon at the last meeting, and actually some time ago, he talked about taking some first steps to plan the 2015-2016 budget, and I think that's really important. Instead of waiting until next spring, it's really a critical initiative, and it should have a significant bearing on both our short-term tactics and our longer-term strategic planning decisions. I'd also like to make sure that people understand that at that public forum, I made it very clear that we need to make decisions and set priorities and decide what we are not going to do if we don't have the revenue. I never said that we were going to continue the same programs, and I resent the fact that someone attributes that to me in this meeting. So I did not say that. It was several people there that heard that and responded to it. We're all reluctant to make major reductions in programs that support our academic goals, and we have to do that before we know exactly how much property tax or state or federal funding we'll receive. We're hoping for the best, but we did not do that well in the revenue area. The Peoria County School Facilities Sales Tax Referendum was not successful, and millions of dollars of our potential property tax revenue continue to flow into TIF districts and projects every year. We were hoping for the best, but now we need to prepare for the worst. And I'm going to vote yes on this budget, but for one, I'm going to continue to take a long, hard look at any opportunity to reduce spending and to generate additional revenue. Thank you.
Did you have a comment?
I did. I checked my math. The unrestricted ed fund is 111 million. It's about 8 million in the restricted budget.
Any other questions or comments on the budget?
Not from Mr. Wilcoxon, but I'd like to ask the superintendent if she would speak to the travel-related, grants that we receive.
So when we submit the grants, there are some requirements for travel. That travel could be in-state or out-of-state. It just depends on where the travel is located. But once again, we utilize a combination of restricted and unrestricted funds, restricted being the grant funds, and then unrestricted being the other funds. But it is a combination. For example, even on your travel report tonight, if you take a look, there's a column that tells you where the funding is coming from. And for example, IDEA, we're sending some special ed staff members and some teachers to a training. It comes out of the special ed grant. Yes, we could use those, we could move that money to supplies and other materials, but it's a balance of what you need. One of the things, if we limit staff on traveling, participating in professional development, they're not going to grow. And sometimes networking with colleagues in other neighboring school districts or across the country does make a difference, because it opens our eyes up to things that are happening outside of Peoria and what we need to do to make sure our students are competitively ready when they graduate from high school. But we do use a combination.
But there, in the grant, though, there is designated amount of money that you can use or not go over for travel.
Yes.
And it's not restricted to in-state or out-of-state.
No, it's not restricted to in-state or out-of-state, but we set a certain amount for professional development and travel. And they look at that to see if we have a balance when we submit, let's say, for example, our Title I budget or to the state. But also remember, part of Title I is Title II. Title II is a focus on professional development and leadership.
Mr. Crawford?
Dr. Latham, more of a suggestion than anything. I know that we've had people come, staff come to the podium after they've made these trips to get the PD, and they've expressed gratitude and have shared with us how beneficial those have been. I would just ask that you continue to do that, because I think people wrongly criticize the effectiveness of these programs. And as we've heard from, as a response to Mrs. Ross's question, I mean, many of these travel requirements are part of the grant. So, but I think that you've done a great job of having staff come here and tell us how these things help them. So these are working trips, and I applaud you for bringing those to the district, and I think it helps us. It helps our staff.
There's no way we would have been able to get the authorization for Markville and Sterling had we not traveled outside of Peoria. The staff attended training across the entire country, but they were able to network with their peers and get that information. I really don't believe we could have, well, we couldn't have done it in Peoria because there's no training in Peoria. There was some training in Chicago, but I think that was at the high school level. St. Louis, I think, was the closest that we sent Tree Wind principal and staff.
And I'd just add that these are the curriculum programs that make us an attractive place to send your children.
Yes.
And so.
Okay, anything else? Let's call the roll.
Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carries.
That brings us to presentation suggestions by board members. Mrs. Ross?
I have a suggestion, and it's about going back to where we used to be to some degree. There was a time when we did have a finance committee, board level finance committee, that looked at our finances and did some 5-year projections and that kind of thing. I'd like to see us reinstitute the finance committee, call it what you want, finance/budget committee, to look at our finances and make some, some future predictions and that kind of thing. We'll give Mr. Wilcoxon and his team, some assistance.
Okay, we can look into that.
On another topic, I will not be here for the September 29th meeting on strategic planning. And keeping my remarks very brief, I think there are 3 things that are critical for that meeting. One is to focus on goals and not the details at this point. Second is, how do we understand what our resources will be over the next 5 years? And finally, setting priorities, because that gets right down to it. At the end of the day, how you allocate the funds and set the resources is really what you end up with. So that's my thoughts in absentia for the meeting. I apologize for not being there. Second, just a question. I know that we've received the request for the reauthorization request, and I just want to know if we have a timetable for taking that up. I know that we do have somewhat of a deadline, and I think they have some expectations. I didn't know if we had something set up for that or not yet.
We'll provide the board with an update based on the information that was presented, and then wait for your feedback.
Okay.
We'll provide an update to the information that was presented to you.
I think Quest had said that they really needed to know if there was going to be any change by first of January or something
Yeah,
like that.
that was my understanding. I just didn't know when we planned to take it up here. So,
You'll have the information by the next board meeting.
okay, thank you.
Well, the 14th, October 14th, we won't be here on the 29th.
And just to that end, just so the public knows, each board member received the Quest proposal, and we all are reviewing that. So it's not like none of us have seen it. As soon as we received it here at the district, it was distributed to all board members. So just want to go on record so everyone knows that's the way it is.
But I think we want to just point out, while the board is making a decision, those documents are for board members. I just think we need to make sure, because of the fact that it is a negotiation as it relates to a renewal of a contract. Correct, Rick?
Yes. Anything else from board members, suggestions or presentations? Okay, reports from board committee, next Monday on the 29th at 6:30, we will be having a committee of the whole meeting here in the boardroom. Basically, I think the main goal of that meeting is to come up with a process for the strategic plan. So that's what we'll be talking about next Monday night. And any other, Laura Butler?
Yes. On Thursday evening, this coming Thursday evening, we have the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee. This committee is chaired by myself and Mrs. Ross, and we're starting up the school year, reviewing all the information and data that the committee took into consideration or put out there for parents, teachers, students, about electronic devices in the classroom to enhance learning. It's not a matter of if we should do it, it's a matter of how and when. So hopefully by the end of this semester, we will have a comprehensive report on the surveys and how District 150 can join in just the technology learning progress for the district.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think we have a policy committee meeting the 18th of October.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I thought you were done.
And in our last meeting, we had one issue that we brought to the board here. There were several others that we looked at, and we felt we needed more information, and rather than just move precipitously, we asked to develop that over some period of time so that we know whether or not it's really something we need to spend our time on.
Okay.
We will have a date for the building committee meeting announced on September 29th. John, I've been trying to do that, but we've just had some conflicts that have come up with other players. I think most important for this building committee meeting, we're going to kind of do some planning about what the building committee needs to be addressing through the course of this school year. So I want to make sure that we have the necessary players there.
Okay. And I just want to add that the PTA committee meeting will be held here in the boardroom. And again, that's for parents, teachers, and other community stakeholders for an advisement as it relates to, again, how we can better the district through the things that are positive and helpful for our students.
Okay.
Well, Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee, not a PTA meeting, but Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Ross.
Did we say adjourn? Oh, okay. I didn't even hear it. No.